Alright everybody, hello to another Overwatch League fan thoughts and analysis video. Today we're taking a look at the Guangzhou Charge, the third expansion team I'm looking at here. One of the most interesting expansion teams in my opinion, so let's just take a look, jump right into this team, and start with this team's DPS core, which is one of my favorite DPS cores in the league right now because it's super interesting. And there was an Overwatch League article about this team in general, but this team, of course representing the Guangzhou province in China, has 4 DPS players, all from different countries. None of them are from the same country, and all from different teams, different backgrounds, different everything. So we'll start with the one player who I think will most definitely see the most playtime, will most definitely start, and that is Happy, who comes from Bellum, who came in the top 4 finish in the Contenders 2018 Season 2 for Korea. Happy is going to be their hit scan player for the most part. Widowmaker, he pops off. He does really well. Before he played for Bellum, he played for Blossom and played in 2017. The only time he played in 2018 was Contenders 2018 Season 2. But obviously it's a long season, so... Well, not, I guess not super long, but it's like a long set of games, not like a short tournament. There's quite a few games you play in that, so he will most definitely be the one that plays, especially because Bellum is a big part of this team, and we'll get more into that as we get into later parts of the roster. But Happy, I think, will be the main DPS. He'll be the mainstay DPS for this team. He has that hit scan hero pool, which means that the other player you're going to have is going to be one that has more flexibility or plays more projectile heroes. You know, your Pharah, your Genji, your Junkrat, whatever. And I think the front runner for that position for most of the season will be Eileen. Happy, a South Korean player. Eileen, a Chinese player who comes from LGD Gaming, who came in second in Contenders 2018 Season 2 for China. Came in second in 2017, or Season 1 for 2018 Contenders in China. He's got that Genji, he's got that Doomfist, he's even got some of that Sombra. Very interesting player. Played for the Chinese World Cup team in 2017, did not play for the team in 2018. So an interesting player. Has been with LGD Gaming for a while. Has been with them, actually, he was with them in 2016, is when he started with that team. So same team for a long time. Very interesting player. The only Chinese player on this roster, at least in the DPS core, there is one other Chinese player on this roster, but this DPS core, he is the only Chinese player. It'll be interesting to see how he meshes with a Korean player with Happy, and some English-speaking players. The first of which is Kib, who is from the UK, comes from the British Hurricane, who came in the bottom 10 for Contenders 2018 Season 2 in Europe. Came in first Contenders 2018 Season 1. Won the Season 3 trials. Kib also played for the UK World Cup team, which of course impressed a lot of people. Played very well in the World Cup. I think that you have to give this team a lot of credit for what they did. And Kib was a big part of that team. Playing a lot of Brigitte, playing some Roadhog, playing some Genji. He has a much more flexible hero pool, which also makes him a player that we could see play a lot as well. But of course he is from the UK, he speaks English. What language is this team going to speak is an interesting fact, because a lot of this team is South Korean. You got 2 Chinese players, and a player from the UK and a player from the United States, who we will talk about here in a second. But if communication is a problem, you wonder why a player like Kib or Eileen would be their go-to options at DPS. But they don't have another option other than, Happy in that South Korean roster with a bunch of South Korean speaking players, and he's going to be your hit scan. And then you have 3 non-Korean DPS players. The other one, of course, is Nero. Now, Nero is not 18, so he will not be playing right away. He's only 17. He comes from the Toronto Esports team. If you know anything about Toronto Esports, you know that they are a disaster that fell apart and completely collapsed, and it was pretty crazy. But that's who he comes from, obviously. For Toronto Esports had gotten second in Contenders 2018 Season 1 for North America, came in the top 8 in Season 2 for North America, but he's only 17, so he won't be playing right off the bat, so not a lot to expect from him. His hero pool overlaps a lot with Eileen's, so I really don't expect to see a lot of him early on. I expect it mostly to be Happy and then Eileen and Kib kind of switching off between whatever they need. If they need a more flexible kind of, switch over to Roadhog or switch over to Brigitte in that DPS role, then I expect to see more Kib. But if they need steady kind of projectile play, I expect to see Eileen. That's my thought there. As well as a thought from our good old friend ZP over on the Overwatch League website. I have been, I'll have a link to that in the description. He made a nice little post about the Guangzhou Charge roster. Some of what I'm saying was inspired by him, but also just stuff that I've kind of figured out on my own. Next, we'll talk about the flex role, which is Hatba, coming from the Philadelphia Fusion. So you have a player who had a stage of experience as well as the playoffs. Did not play at all in the first 3 stages, but then played for this team in Stage 4 and in the season playoffs. So Hatba is a player to really, I think, be the leader of this team. He has the experience. He's the only player on this team with Overwatch League experience. Obviously, some of these players have Contenders experience and whatnot. But Hoppa's an interesting player. I didn't think he was the best off-tank on the Philadelphia Fusion. Maybe he was. Maybe you disagree with me, but I didn't think he was. I personally liked Poco better, and I'm glad that Poco's getting that chance to show that. But he played for the Philadelphia Fusion, so he was on a very successful team, and he was a big part of that team's playoff run. So Hotba is now taking his talents elsewhere, and I'll be interested to see how he does on this team and how he performs. I think he is one of the players I'm most interested in seeing how he is on a different team, right? He's completely changing divisions, going from Atlantic to Pacific. We'll play his old team once during the regular season, but overall, I think it'll be interesting to see how he leads this team. He has to be this team's leader. It's pure and simple. He has to be the person who leads this team because he has the experience. And he actually, he's the flex tank, but he really is a flex player. He played pretty much everything that you needed. He is going to be a big part of this team. He is a big signing or a big trade that this team managed to pull off. He is huge. He is a big part of what this team needs to succeed. They need to make sure they use him correctly and that they have him as their leader because he is a very, very good player. Their main tank, we have Rio, who comes also from Metabellum. He is going to be your main tank, of course. Winston, Reinhardt, Orisa has some previous experience playing alongside Happy. He is the only main tank on this team, much like how Hoppa is the only flex on this team, so those two will be playing a lot together, I'm sure. Metabellum came top 4 in both Season 1 and Season 2 of Contenders 2018 in Korea. Ironically enough, both times the team lost to the team that did not win the whole thing, but instead got second. Ironic. So you have a team, obviously, that is bringing in players over, basically, and it's something we've seen a lot. Shanghai Dragons brought over a large portion of players from Kongdu Panthera. Obviously, New York Excelsior in Season 1 brought a bunch of players in from LW Blue. They signed the entire roster, brought in some extra players to kind of also bolster that roster, and that's what we've seen now with the Vancouver Titans have done that, and now we've seen this here. It's a thing that I believe is successful when you bring in teams that are successful in Korea or wherever, and you just bring the whole team. You bring the coaching staff, you bring the players, you bring people that have experience together to know what they're doing. So that's what I love about this team, is that they did bring a team together that will help them a lot. Because that's not the only people from Metabellum they have. No, there are more. Such as Chara, the first of the support players that we're talking about here. once again, a Metabellum player. He's not the only Metabellum Sport player this team has, which is very important. He's going to be, I believe, playing mostly with Wanjie Lee, who also comes from Metabellum, who's going to be your off support, your off healer. So I think Char will most likely be this team's starting healer. They also have a couple other interesting players. They have Only Wish, also coming out of China. He is another main support player, so he could be a starter, but I don't think he will be. I think they're going to opt to go with Chara and Wanjie Lee because they have that experience together, and because so much of this roster is that Metabellum team, I think you want to keep a lot of that together. I believe it's 4 Metabellum players: Chara, Wanjie Lee, Happy, and Rio, all coming from that same Metabellum team, so they have experience together. You also throw in Only Wish, of course, coming from LGD Gaming. And you have Shu, who is another off support, playing in the past with Toronto Esports Club. So you have some instances where there are players who have experience together, even in the weirdest places, which is very, very interesting. You have 2 players coming from LGD with Only Wish and Eileen, so that's some stuff there that works together. You have a bunch of players from Metabellum. You have Shu coming from Toronto Esports Club, and he's not the only person to come from Toronto Esports Club on this team, because you also have Nero coming from Toronto Esports Club. So you have a lot of chemistry with players on this team who have played with each other in the past. I really like this Guangzhou Charge roster. I really do like it. It'll be interesting to see the language problem if it exists. Obviously, it's something that has been talked about a lot with the Shanghai Dragons last season. They had an issue with it, so it'll be interesting to see how this team handles having 4 different countries represented, 3 different languages. If English is what they speak, which is what I would assume is what they speak, because that's usually the language you're going to speak when you have players internationally, because it's the most commonly spoken second language. It's the language I think most people are going to understand. But they also, in theory, don't have to have, players that aren't Korean on this roster. Now, obviously, if you're going to run a 2-2-2 composition, you want that, because your DPS players, you only got 1 that's from South Korea, so you're going to want a large, primarily South Korean team playing, but you can't get away with it fully. If you want to have 2 DPS players, you have to have someone from another country. Now, you could do, in theory, when Nero is able to play, is you have Kib and Nero play. They both speak English, and maybe you just have them playing together, which wouldn't really make a lot of sense, because Happy is their hit scan player, and Nero is not a hit scan player. Kib is not a hit scan player either, so you won't really see that happening. Maybe once at some point that happens, but I highly doubt it. But this team has a lot of things that I really, really like. They're not particularly flashy or star-studded. You have players that are good and that prove they were good. Kib, especially, I think, did a very good job consistently of showing that he's a good player throughout the World Cup. He was one of my favorite players to watch during the World Cup on Team UK, so I really like this roster. I think they are one of the better expansion team rosters. They open up their season against the Chengdu Hunters, who I do not really believe in that much. I think the Chengdu Hunters are going to be one of the weaker teams, and that's who they open up their season against. It's a good team to start your season against, if you ask me. They have to play Dallas, they have to play Vancouver early on in the season. Those are their first 3 matches. That's a tough early schedule before going into the game against the Florida Mayhem and then playing both Los Angeles teams. Those are their first 6 matches. It's tough. I definitely think they'll beat Chengdu. Dallas, we'll see if they beat Dallas or not. We have yet to see which kind of Dallas we'll get. If we'll get Stage 4 Dallas from Season 1, if we'll get Stage 1 through 3 Dallas from Season 1. Vancouver, of course, is a team that most people are going to be pretty worried about, but we haven't talked about Vancouver yet, so we'll get to that when we get to that. And then you have teams like Florida and the LA teams that are going to differ based on what we saw last year. Most likely Florida's better. Are the Valiant worse? Are the Gladiators better? Are they worse? It's obviously too early to tell anything about the first 6 matches of the season, because that goes pretty far from here. That's several weeks away. It's a couple months away from the start of the season, but then even more so, you get into it. So there's a lot that's going on here that just needs to be understood about some of these teams, and it's hard to say for sure right now how well a team will play. But I do really like the Guangzhou Charge roster. I think they look very good. I think they have a lot of talent on this team. I like that they went for a big team signing that we've seen in the past. It worked for New York. I believe the London Spitfire is made up of 2 different teams that they just signed and then kind of trimmed down until they got it to the place that they liked it. So that has worked in the past, obviously, and teams found success by just taking people from one team and just bringing them all over and then saying, all right, that's our team now. So it'll be curious. It'll be curious. I will be curious to see how the Guangzhou Charge perform. But I do really like this roster, and I believe that they have a very good chance at being one of the top teams. Definitely one of the top expansion teams, but they could be a top 12 team or top 8 team. Top 8 that made the playoffs. And this team could be scary down the road, right? Kib as a player, I think, is going to be very good and very fun to watch. And I think this team has the talent that it needs to find that success late in the season, throughout the season, and then you get Nero later in the season, who will help out a lot. So I think this Guangzhou Charge roster is very good. I think it's a solid team. I think we will be seeing them competing at a high level, and I'm excited to see where this team goes. But that is everything I have for you on the Guangzhou Charge. So if you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments down below what you thought about it and what you think about this team. Also consider liking and subscribing if you have not done so already, as it helps out a bunch. But that is everything. So thank you again for watching. I will see you all in the next video. Hope you all have a very, very, very happy holidays if you celebrate Christmas, which is tomorrow. Merry Christmas. But that's everything. Goodbye. Take care of yourselves. Yeah. Bye-bye.